When I first came to Canada, I learned to ski. Uh, a friend of mine who ran marathons with me suggested that as I liked endurance running and now skiing, I should learn cross country skiing. That's kind of a perfect combination of both things, he said. Hmm. He promised to train me, and we started training, and I think it was like November. And then he said, "Oh, I've entered us for the Canadian Ski Marathon in February." Great, thanks. I checked. The Canadian Ski Marathon is 160 kilometers of cross country skiing over 2 days. Thanks, Gerald, if you're listening. Um, but he trained me diligently, but my technique was really quite poor. Um, and hence, although I had plenty of energy and endurance, my speed was really, really quite slow for the amount of energy I was putting in. So the weekend of the race arrived, and the first day actually went pretty well. I completed the designated 75K on day one, um, and passed all 5 checkpoints within the cutoff times. On day two, it was a bit longer and I was a bit more tired. I reached the last checkpoint at the end of having done 142 kilometers. I reached the last checkpoint 3 minutes after the cutoff time, and the officials there would not allow me to continue. I'd done 142 kilometers of skiing and I was forced to drop out. I was absolutely devastated. It was just like a punch in the gut. It's a pretty tough pill to swallow after doing all that preparation and trying to be courageous and take on a challenge. And actually, very similar to one that our author had in today's book. And we'll talk about that later. Hi, and welcome to the Running Book Reviews podcast, where we review books written for runners, about runners, and by runners to help you decide if you'd like to read the book for yourself. We also hope that listening to us chat about running can keep you motivated about your own running and maybe inspire you to try something new. My name is Alan, and with my co-host Liz, we're going to talk today with author Sean about his book, Just Finish.
Just Finish is author Sean Kachmarski's story of going from watching the Great North Run on TV every year and telling his wife, "I'm going to run that next year," to actually running it. Sean played football while he was in school, but never described himself as athletic. And by the time he decided to start running, he had 2 kids, a full-time job, and was overweight. So he wasn't even sure if he could do it. It all started with a health scare in 2004 and finally deciding to download a Couch to 5K training app a decade later in 2014. Just Finish is about Sean's running journey, but also a tribute to all the people he met and who have helped him along the way, and a lesson in choosing goals that motivate you. The book is divided into 48 chapters, which Sean refers to as miles, as he has found that writing this book was a lot like his running journey, full of hurdles, but also people who believed in him. A little bit about Sean. Sean is a Canadian living in the UK with his wife and 2 kids. He considers himself ordinary, just like everyone else, and this is what drives him to want to help others believe in themselves and their ability to set goals and achieve them. In addition to his book, Sean is also very active on social media, including Instagram and YouTube. And we're going to hear about that a little bit later, where you can follow him. But welcome to the podcast, Sean.
Well, thank you very much to both of you for not only having me here, but also taking some time to read my book. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here.
So I guess the first question is always the same one. And we know how hard it is to write a book. So how about you tell us why you decided to write it?
Well, there's actually 2 reasons. While I was running in the past, I used to listen to running books, and I would listen to Rich Roll's Finding Ultra or Ira Rani's book, Fat Man to Green Man, and Still Not Bionic. And those would tell a story about people's journeys, about from a medical scare to them running, 10Ks, half marathons, and then they would go on to run like 50, 60 Ironmans. And I just it sort of told my story, but they went completely out of the realm of possibility. So that was sort of the thinking that I had behind, I have a story here, but that was as far as it went. But as I was going on this journey and experiencing these new milestones in my life and overcoming these obstacles, my friends would tell me, "Oh, that story is great. You should write a book." And then I tell another story to someone else, and he goes, "Oh, that's an interesting story. That motivated me. You should write that book." So essentially, writing the book was very similar to me starting running. I like 8 years ago, I don't look like a runner. I'm a big guy. You said I played football in high school, and I did, but I did all the fat person sports. So it was the discus and the shot put, and I never considered myself a runner. And so as I was doing the running journey, I was really suffering from imposter syndrome. But then the same thing was about writing a book. All during school, I had issues with grammar and spelling, and it was just a really tough thing for me to think about. So I just decided to start writing the book, and I just started off with, I did it in chronological order, and it was really interesting because I was able to reflect on the highlights and go, "Wow, I can't believe I did that." I just kept writing, kept writing, kept writing, and then after about 6 months, I had this manuscript, and I thought, "Well, what the heck am I going to do with this manuscript?" And the key to a successful book, in my case, was get yourself a really good editor. And the editor just really challenged me to think about different word choices, and the rest is history.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite the undertaking, anytime, but like you've never really like enjoyed writing, and now you're writing a book, which is amazing. But let's go back to your, like, I guess your beginnings as a runner, because I think that you're right. I think that we do have those books about these like complete flips, like people that started off maybe unfit or whatever, or they weren't athletic, and they turn into like just these running machines
Olympians or
yeah, or
Olympians and
those
world
kinds.
record holders, and
Exactly. And the thing is that like the people like you are a lot more common, and nobody's really written that story.
I think it's one of the reasons why I also read the book, because I couldn't find a book that really was for that grassroots first time runner, and a person that may not actually like the act of running. Like, I don't like the act of running, but the end of the run feeling is what makes me want to go. So yeah, it's there's no book around somebody who's just a normal person just getting out there and running. So yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. That's actually great that you say that, because I have a colleague at work, and she would start exercising because she wants to be healthier, and she starts exercising, and she starts on something and she finds it fun until she doesn't, and then she stops, and then she'll be stopped for like a while, and then she'll try something else. And over the years, like, because I've worked at the same company for like 8 years now, and over the years she's told me a few times like, "Oh, I'd like to start running." But it's nice that you say that, like, even though you don't like it, like there's something about it that you like, and it's the end result. So whatever it is that you like about running, I think if it motivates you, then it's great. But maybe let's just start with where you came from. Before you started running, what was your lifestyle like?
Well, it was sitting in front of the TV, picking crisp shards out of my navel, and drinking full fat cokes, and eating takeaways, every weekend, having a cheeky McDonald's but not telling anybody, uh, just slugging along, getting fatter and more out of shape, and running upstairs and being out of breath, and just not living a healthy lifestyle at all.
Yeah, can we just like rewind there? You said full fat Coke. Like Coke just doesn't have any fat in it. It's just sugar. So you mean full sugar, right,
full
Alan?
sugar
Yeah, well,
Coke.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
Is
I
this
knew what he meant. Like full bore, like doesn't have the
yeah,
word diet on it anywhere.
yes,
That's
okay,
what he
okay.
meant.
Oh, okay,
56
okay.
grams of sugar, yes, and having like 5 or 6 a day, and it's just it's just not good, not good.
Okay.
So that was my life. That was pretty much it. That was every day, work your hours and come home, and eat your tea and just sit and watch TV and just exist.
Yeah,
Mm.
reading your book, it looks like you had some kind of health scare in 2004. And sometimes when we talk to people, they would say, "Oh, I had a heart attack," or "and then I transformed my life." But in fact, in the book, it seems that you had a health scare in 2004, but you only started really running in 2014. In between, you kept saying I'm going to run that, I'm going to run that race every time the Great North Run came on TV. But it was just kind of a running joke.
Yeah, it was absolutely a running joke. It was
Yeah.
because I still get motivated when I see the London Marathon, and every year I'd see the Great North Run on, and I tell my wife one day, I said, I'm going to run that next year. And she, of course, it was the first time she'd laugh. And then every year it would be just sort of a chuckle. And because they'd be like, oh, I'm going to run. I get really quite motivated and, almost get it up on the computer and almost enter and never do. And because I had no concept of how long a half marathon was. Um, you know, the winner of the marathon would be announced and their time would be announced. Like, oh, that's not bad. I had no concept of time or mileage or training or what it actually would take to do that. But I said, what I saw was people on there with, big people, small people, all size people doing it. And I said, well, I could do that, I think. And I never did it. And until I had my health scare, I decided to start that journey that I never thought I would end up at the start of the Great North Run.
But then you started the journey, like, I mean, the running journey, your first the first time you downloaded an app was in like 2014. So that was like
Yes.
10 years later. So was there something in between that you tried or maybe not stuck with, or
Yeah, it was all about motivation. It was like, oh, every Monday was diet day and they go for walks and running was never ever in my vocabulary at all. But then by that time we had some kids, and so I was playing with the kids and we'd run around with the kids, and that seemed to me the only exercise I would need, but it wasn't the right type of exercise. I think it was all like your friend. It was all about the motivation. What motivation did I have to start running or changing my life? There wasn't really any until I had the health scare.
A lot of people like you or ordinary people, people we talk to who are not crazy geek runners like Liz and I are, will say things like, "Well, actually, I'm not a runner. It's not for me." The term we often hear is, "I'm not a real runner." I did some jogging, but I'm not a real runner. And it's almost like the think there's some sort of exclusive club that you've got to have, I don't know, a special pass to get into or something. Um, did you kind of go through that, sort of intimidated by the skinny people? And
I will tell you, I it's been a while, but I still feel that way because, like I said before, I don't look like a runner. I'm always last, and I tend not to run with people because I always feel like I'm holding them back. I don't. It's something that I really struggle with the idea of that imposter syndrome, and I don't really belong here, and that sort of thing. And I got over that with the running bit, but I'm going through it again with my triathlon journey that I've just started from scratch again. But it always sticks with you that I don't know what I'm doing, and I don't deserve to be here. And until I finished, the story of my book and my journey, then I'm more comfortable with calling myself a runner now, but I would not volunteer that information in a room full of
what would you say
other
to
runners.
people who are listening to this who maybe have that kind of feeling? Because it's very common.
Mhm.
Yeah. My only message, I think, to start off, I think it's very important that please do not let a health scare be the catalyst for you to start your running journey or your active lifestyle journey. That's the wrong time. All I can say is that you should start your journey when you want to, but it comes to down your motivation. And in my day job, I'm a personal development and well-being trainer at this print company. And one of the things that I instill in my colleagues at work is that if you want to start your active lifestyle or your running lifestyle, you need to find your why. What's the reasoning behind you want to start? And I always tell them to reflect on it because the first thing that pops into your head is usually not strong enough. So when I had my health scare, my motivation was to lose weight, but that was my very superficial why. And when I then thought about deeper, why do I want to lose weight? It was, well, because I want to be fitter. And I asked myself, why do I want to be fitter? Well, I want to be noticed. Why do I want to be noticed? Well, I want my kids to see me. Why do I want my kids to see me? Because I want to be a good role model for my kids. Why do I want to be a good role model for my kids? Because I want my kids to make great, healthy decisions in the future. And why do I want that? Because I want to be my legacy. Now, that deep why for me, it did take me a few years to share it with the world because I shared in my training at work, but that is my why. Now, that why gets me out of bed. That why gets me out the door when it's raining. That why it gets me out the door when it's cold.
Yeah.
So if you can find your deep why as to why you want to make that change, you can do the impossible. And I proved it to myself in regards to what I've done with my running journey.
You just did I don't know whether you realized it, you may have done it consciously, but you just did a process there, which we learned in management called 5 whys. It's a Japanese technique in management.
Yeah.
Where you go for a deep fundamental understanding by saying why, you answer it, and then you say why, and you go 5 deep.
It's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
And the people that have been motivated by reading my book have asked me to help them to be active or start running. And I say, well, what's your why? What's the reason? And they tell me, and I say, well, that's not deep enough. Really think about it. It has to be personal. And so they get their why, and I see them on Strava with the spandex, and they're all excited. And about about 2 months later, they've stopped running.
Yeah.
And I go to him, what's happened? Why do you stop running? What stopped you from running? He goes, I don't have time to run, or whatever it is. Your why isn't deep enough. Your why has to be very personal. Usually it's life-threatening. A lot of people in my training courses are telling me that, thinking about their why has really moved them, because they disclose things like, well, my dad died when he was 58 by a heart attack, and I'm 55. I don't want to die. So that was his why, to start doing something. And that really is powerful.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I guess maybe that's the health scare is how most people find their why. And it is that fear that that ends up driving them to do something good. Obviously, fear is not a good motivator, but I guess in this case, it's a good motivator to start.
Yeah, it's to get that mindset. I think it's that mindset for you to look at the running or active lifestyle through the prism of what's the reasoning why I'm doing it. And being a role model for my kids is really quite powerful, because they see me do these things, come back with my tomato face, and come back dripping in sweat and huffing and puffing, and I've never ever sort of challenged my children to live an active lifestyle, but just me doing what I'm doing. My son comes up to me about 3 years ago and asked me if he could work out in my gym, and I never asked him to. I never told him to. I never even pushed him to, but he sees me doing that, and then he starts doing that for himself, and then how he's in there more than I am. And then a few years ago, my daughter comes up to me and says, "Hey, Dad, can I go for a run with you?" And I'm like, "Of course you can." I never ever pressured her, but once again, it's what they see, and what they see as important to me, they take on as important to them.
Yeah, I would echo that quite strongly, Sean. I have 3 daughters, and my youngest daughter actually has a podcast. And I was listening to her podcast, and she was talking with someone, and she said, in our household, my parents were always exercising, so I just took it as a natural thing that's what I needed to do, and that's normal to do that. And if you're not doing that, it's not normal. And I just took it for granted. And I thought, wow, I never thought of that. But that's exactly the point that you're making. I didn't start running so I could motivate my daughter to run, but effectively it's had that effect on them, and that's a phenomenal, let's say, side effect.
Yeah, and then what they do is, by them living an active lifestyle, they actually motivate me to do it more. And it's like that circle of, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a circular
virtuous circle.
Oh, there
as
you go.
opposed
Yeah.
to vicious circle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's just amazing for them to see them make healthier choices, and pushing me when I'm having that full fat Coke once in a while. They're like, "What are you doing, Dad? You don't do usually drink." Like, you feel guilty, and it's just really motivating, subconsciously motivating each other. But it all stems from me finding that why, and unfortunately, it was a health scare. But it shouldn't be that way.
So, maybe we can talk a little bit about this fantastic thing you guys have in the UK called Park Run.
Yes.
Because like we learned about Park Run because we read a book about it. I mean, we found out later that we actually have Park Run in Montreal here. So there's one and a half of them. I say half for the other one because it doesn't exist like every weekend. It's
Yeah.
kind of on and off. But apparently in the UK, everyone knows what Park Run is, even
Yes.
non-runners. But it took you a while to discover Park Run. You didn't know what it was. So how did you discover Park Run?
I had no idea about them. It was just through the marvel of social media. Because I used to work on cruise ships, I had a lot of friends all over the world. And when I was on Facebook, I'm not on Facebook anymore, but when I was on Facebook, I was the guy that would take a picture of my running shoes and post and say, "I'm going for a run today." And just every 5 seconds. And then one of my colleagues from ships saw these posts, and she knew about these park runs. Have you ever heard of a park run? I said, I had no idea. And then when I posted, I had no idea. She basically linked the closest park run that was to me, and she lives in Australia. And
Briony.
Brony, yeah, yeah. She was sort of the person that introduced me to them. I wasn't at that stage where I was running 5Ks or even running with people. I was still running at night because I didn't want anyone to see me. Because, like I said, I had complete imposter syndrome. I didn't. It was just not a thing that I wanted to do. Be seen running, basically. And it took me a while to get to. But I think they're absolutely brilliant. For the people that don't know what they are, it's just essentially at 9 o'clock every Saturday, they meet at a local park and they run 5K, and it's all run by fantastic volunteers. It's all free. You get a barcode, and all it is, it's not a race. It's just a running event, and you get times for yourself. And then every week you go back and try to beat the time. And I haven't been to one in a while, but I was up, I think the last count up to 68 park runs under my belt. And one thing that I would like to emphasize as well, that the running community, as soon as came out of the shadows, they embraced me like with a warm bear hug, and I've made some really good friends, and they've motivated me to go on this journey. And it's just an unbelievable community that will welcome anybody who wants to start.
So you actually mentioned it a couple times that like you were almost you almost like would run in secret because
Yeah.
like you were kind of, you had so much imposter syndrome that you would hide when you were running almost by running in the dark. And I know that that's a real thing. So maybe although we don't think that people should hide when they're running, because like you said, like we are very happy when anybody runs, but for people that maybe are in that position, they want to run, or maybe they started running, but they have this imposter syndrome until they get over it. Like, what kind of strategies did you use? Like you mentioned running in the dark. So when was that?
It was when I first downloaded the Couch to 5K app. Now I don't know if anyone uses it, but basically it's like every day. It's basically, okay, walk for 10 minutes, run for 30 seconds, and then that's it. Like that. And then next day, run for 5 minutes, walk for 5 minutes, run for 2 minutes. It literally just walks you through it. And I would do that at night, and I tell a story about the first sort of, there's a downhill at my house where I start to run, and I felt really good, and I just ran down this hill. But at the end, I was like almost keeling over because I really pushed myself too much. But it's just that consistency in regards to just, if you just go for a walk, a brisk walk, and then run between light posts or something, and that's it for one day, and then go to light posts for the next day. And that's exactly what I did. But also the undercurrent of that, why I was doing it, my motivation, it just kept me going until I actually felt that I was actually running. And then when I started running more than I was walking, that made me feel good, but it was only like a mile or 2 miles or whatever it was. But I felt that, my muscles were getting tighter, and I wasn't losing weight, but muscles getting tired. I wasn't breathing as hard, and so I started seeing the physical benefits of running, and then of course it helped with the mental health, and it just made me think clearer, and and like I said, the actual running, I didn't like the actual running, but when I finished the run, I was like on cloud nine. I was like, see clearer, hear clear, taste things better. It was just like that. It was just
Yeah,
like
just
that
more
feeling of
alive.
euphoria.
Mhm.
Yeah, that runner's high. And that's what not longer the run, the bigger the high. So I just kept going, pushing myself, going further and further and further.
You get into park run and you get up to 5K, I
Yes,
guess, with some walking in amongst it. How did you go from there to the Great North Run? The Great North Run is a massive event
massive.
of what,
Mhm.
50,000 or so,
60,000.
50,000
I think
runners, and it's a
66,000.
half
Yeah,
marathon. So it's instead of 5K, it's 21.1K.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think, well, it's just started. I was doing 5Ks, and then I was just training, and I thought, well, at this point, I wasn't thinking about the Great North Run. I was just thinking about the next mile in my head. But then I started doing 5Ks, and then I thought I would do a 10K run, like an actual enter a race. And so I did that. Then I just started getting up to, more mileage and more mileage, more mileage. And then at some point I said to myself, I'm gonna enter. And because it's a lottery, not everyone is guaranteed a
Chosen.
spot. So I thought, I'll live with the fate and I'll enter. And if I enter, I'll deal with it. But I never thought I would get it. And it was just, I kept doing more 10Ks, and I was just increasing my mileage. My breathing was getting better. I felt I was getting stronger. And that's sort of where it started. And then I got into it, and I went, okay, this is where I don't know if you can swear on this channel, but this is where the shit got real, basically. And I'm like, oh crap, now what am I going to do? And so I was training in my mind for this run, but then I thought to myself, I don't really know how to run with people in regards to, like I did 10Ks and stuff, but
Hmm.
like that amount of people. So I thought I would actually enter the Blackpool half marathon, which is only about 3 hours away from us, and take the family down to Blackpool, which is like it's a city that has like the rides. And
Kind of a seaside resort.
Mhm.
yes, they call it
Yeah.
Las Vegas, but it's nowhere near like a Las Vegas. But anyways, um, and so I entered that sillily. I started entering races, and so I had that as my first one, and then I realized I'd entered one the following weekend, which is I think Lancaster. So I had like 3 half marathons in 3 weekends, and Great North one was the last run.
Oops.
I was just like, so all of a sudden now I'm just like fully steeped in this thing. Now I've got focus, and then so I did the 2 half marathons, and I knew I could finish it. But this whole iconic Great North Run had always been talked about, like this event that was going to change my life and just be this epic adventure that is going to crescendo my entire running career up until that moment. And
Mhm.
and unfortunately, it fell flat in regards to that iconic feeling, because I'm such a slow runner. Didn't really feel that way for me in regards to the pageantry, and because being a last place runner or just wanting to finish, the examples I've given is, you get to the point where was told that, oh, the whole all the people in the houses come out and give you oranges and jelly babies and give you snacks, and they cheer you on. And
Hmm.
but because I was near the end, all the jelly
There
babies
wasn't.
had been gone, and the
And the
orange slices
people
been
went
gone, and everyone
back
started packing up their
home.
chairs. And
Yeah.
Oh.
and then you hear about the red arrows flying over the finish, and it's going to be epic. And I was probably about, I don't know, hour and a half away from the finish. I saw the red arrows, but like they were so far away, I heard them, but I couldn't see them.
Yeah.
And then getting to the finish, people are saying it's like 5 people deep, and they're gonna cheer you on. And because I'm last. It's no, there's some people there yelling my name, and And then when you finish the race, most races, even in the black pool and the other half marathons, like the double extra large t-shirts are gone. There's no drinks left. It was just almost to the point that they're almost taking the gantry down. That's what I felt. They're taking the gantry down,
So the
and
big
they're packing everything.
anticlimax.
The anticlimax, and I got really emotional at the end of it because I couldn't believe I was actually finished it, and I thought of myself watching it on the settee on the couch,
Yeah.
and that was, I really choked up, and I started to well and cry, but there was nobody. It was just wasn't
Share it with.
to share it
Yeah.
with, and it wasn't that iconic moment that everyone had told me for the year I was getting up to
Yeah,
it,
it's
that sort of
the
thing.
expectation. It's like they
Yeah,
built up the
absolutely.
expectation, and you built up your own expectation because you had watched it on TV, and I bet you like
Yes.
that was completely different because you get to see all these things like, you know, like the people 5 deep cheering people on, and all those things, like, and then your experience is almost like completely the opposite. I was so disappointed for you, really. Like it was so sad because, I mean, you know, it is a different reality, I guess. But, you know, you even just described, I mean, it's not just the fact that you're a slower runner. It's also that, like, that race is so big that you said that by the time you didn't even leave yet and Mo Farah had finished his run.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It,
So
it took me about an hour and some to get to the start line, and then it was announced that Mo Farah had finished, and I hadn't even started yet, and it was like, geez. And
yeah.
it
It's a
was
bit of a
just
kick
like
in the teeth.
yeah, or even going to the start line, like, got all the elite runners, and you got the club runners, and you got
Yeah.
the sub 200, and I'm going way all the way to the back of this huge line, and
Yeah.
it just motivation kept going lower and lower and lower, but I had to just realize and reflect and be mindful of the fact that I'm actually here. Last year I was sitting on the couch looking at this, and I'm
Yeah.
here.
Mhm.
And that's it. That just, I was just glad for that. But the whole experience was, I've had better
Exciting.
experiences in different
Yeah.
races.
Yeah.
So.
You never thought of joining a running club at this point in your evolution, because that's where you get the support, not from the crowd and
Yeah.
at your level, I think.
Well, I think at this point I had joined this local running club because some
Okay.
people at the park runs, but like I still struggle to this day with running with other people. Like, you guys say
Okay.
you have the same running pace, and that's why
Yeah.
you got to be. But I'm so slow that all people I run with most likely, and I believe, can run faster, and I feel I'm just holding it back. Like,
Yeah.
I'm always at the back, and
Yeah.
it just bugs me that even though it's, oh, don't worry about it, Sean, don't worry about it, we'll run with you. I want to be able to keep up with them and let them have a workout, but it's just that feeling that they keep
Yeah,
holding back.
I have a theory about this, because you know, we're in a running club, and we get, every so often we'll get somebody join, or we'll have an email from someone that wants to join, and the reality is that, like, we have one coach, and he also does the runs, you know, so it's like he can't be spread over, like, you know, several kilometers. He's just one person. And so what ends up happening is that most of us, like, will have like a few people that are like maybe not exactly our pace, but like sort of in the range. So like you'll see them, or you'll be with them, or they'll be just behind or something like that. And then you'll get every so often somebody that joins, and they are slower than everybody else, which wouldn't be a problem if they would stick around, because eventually someone else would join, and they would be just like the same pace as them, and they could create a little group. It's just the problem is they get discouraged, and they stop coming. So by the time that we get like somebody else come, and it's like kind of the same story, they end up like, well, the last person would have been perfect for them, but like they end up, you know, not sticking around. And I understand why they don't stick around, because, you know, from your perspective, it must be like, well, what, you know, you show up to these workouts and you're always by yourself. Like, that's no fun either, right? Like, especially if it's, you know, 3 times a week, you show up 3 times a week to group runs, and you're always like running, like, you know, everybody's
the whole
already
pack is waiting for me to catch up to them. And
yeah,
I did go like consistently, and because I made some good friends, and they all understood, and I said, I don't mind, I like running by myself, that with my music on, but and that sort of thing. So that okay? And then we do hill reps, and that would be, we're all doing the same thing, and I really made some really good bonds with people in those. So yeah, so it is, it's something that I did, and with the park runs, and the one night a week at the running club, it was very motivating. But I found the best pleasure from running was when I was by myself and had my earphones on and just run, and like that would be my happy place in regards to running. But the whole
Okay.
idea of running in groups, it's good, and I think it's great for most people. It didn't fit for me.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. So you mentioned the headphones, and in your
Okay.
book, you mentioned that you love running tech. So I was
Yes.
just kind of wondering, because it seems like you adopted running tech right from the start. Most people, like, they're runners and they don't even want to have a running watch because they're like, oh, I don't need a running watch because,
I'm
like,
not a real runner.
I'm not a real runner, right?
Yeah.
But you adopted all of these things: the heart rate monitors, the wireless headphones, and I don't know, probably a whole bunch of other
Watches
things
and
too, watches and
everything. Yes.
everything. You have a lot of experience with this stuff. So have you since maybe stopped using certain things that you used to use because, like, you found that, like, finally you didn't really use the data, or what's your perspective
Or
on?
are you just a geek for that stuff?
I'm a geek for that stuff. I have so many stats on myself. I have so many stats on myself. I have no idea what they mean, to be honest. I love the stats. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know how I got. I think a friend told me if it's not on Strava, it never happened. Like,
Yeah, it's
literally,
true. It's true.
there'd be times that I'd go for my 5K run and it didn't register on my phone, on my watch, or it didn't register on what I was using, and I had to go for another 5K run to say I went for that run, because
Oh, that's a bit extreme.
it was that bad.
Yeah.
The thing that yes, I am still a gadget geek, but I think the thing that I did wrong with the whole gadget thing is that I always bought like the cheapest thing first, and then I
Mhm.
bought the next level up, next level up, next level up, and then I finally got like an iWatch, and that
Yeah.
was like, if I would have just saved all that money up for all the tap stuff and all the bad stuff and the lower end stuff, and bought the actual good one, that would have been a lot better. Because now, yes, I just use my iWatch, and that just links to pretty much everything that I needed to link to. And but I went through every little I had these, I don't know, like, it goes around your neck and does your pace, and I had, like, it was just everything, every piece of tech you could have. And so if it's just having one piece on, and the headphones, I had like big headphones, and then I went to like the jawbone and they didn't feel
Mhm.
right, and then I went to it was just,
So what are your go-to running headphones right now?
right now are my Apple.
The AirPods.
Earbuds.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
took me
like
a long
those
time
too.
because to get these, because I thought they were going to fall out. I didn't think they're like, so I had the ones that were sort of attached, and I
Mhm.
thought they were going to fall out, but I think they're brilliant.
Yeah, I think it depends on the shape of your ears. I think, like, if they either just work or they don't, because I know, like, I love the AirPods, and my husband, he hates them because they fall out of his ears. So
Okay.
yeah, it's interesting. And we tried, like, the different size tips and stuff, and, like, it
Yeah.
just yeah. So now I have two pairs of earbuds from Apple, and he has none. So he bought another set of headphones.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The Bose are really good. I used those for a long time, and they had like a little string with so they can, I can put it on my,
Yes.
and
Hmm.
so that was nice. And so I was really worried about not having that string.
I have
But the
those.
Bose Sports were ones I probably used for the longest time.
One last geeky tech question. What
Sure.
about, because you started with a heart rate monitor, like, strap? Have you since ditched that and just used the watch-based heart rate? Or
Yes. Ironically, I had to get another. I sold them all and I just used my iWatch, but I row now a lot. I got a rower. I row now, and the erg and the Concept 2 doesn't attach to my iWatch, so I had to go back old school and buy a
oh
heart rate
no.
strap to
Okay.
sort of connects to this. And I'm using the app, the Z, is it XER app for rowing. So it's like a Zift thing, type of thing for
Yeah.
rowing. So
Oh, okay.
it's just really motivating
Cool.
me to keep going. But yeah, so I use apps and I'd use Zift and get the little pod for my shoes. And when Nike had like a pod in the shoe, I had the running pod and all these. Thinking back, silly now. I should have just bought the Apple Watch and be done with it. But
Except in the meantime, the Apple Watch got better.
Yeah.
So
yes,
With respect to tech, you sound a little bit like Liz is with running shoes. Like
yes.
a new running shoe comes out and she goes, "Oh, look at that! Oh, it's like shiny object, you know?"
yes,
Or like they come out with the like fall colorways, of the same
yes.
shoe, and you're like, oh, this one's fluorescent and it looks so fast and it's pink.
Yes. Do you use the same brand of shoe all the time, or do you go
No,
different brands?
no, I don't. I actually like I think that right now most of my shoes are Saucony brand, but like I have no allegiance to one brand. I look around at all the models.
It's
Oh, do
it's
you?
it's kind of fun to change up as well.
hmm
Well, when I first started, I was only Nike. Nike was the only shoe because I love the product. I love the how it looks and that sort of thing. And I started off with the Nike Boeing shoe, and then I realized I read up that shoe is not really great for running because you can turn your ankle very easily on the specific shoe. So I think it was Brony who suggested go to the sweatshop. There's a running store in the UK here and get your gait analyzed to see what type of shoe is best for you.
hmm
So I did, and they get you on a treadmill and that sort of thing. And then they said they bring out some shoes, and they brought out some shoes, and none of them were Nike. And I'm like, okay, I don't know if I can do this. So I tried Brooks and the Brooks Glycerin series,
hmm
and
Hmm.
they were awesome. Like they
Good.
were absolutely brilliant, and they were like support and comfort. And so ever since then, I've only stuck with Brooks. Like I had the 17, I had the 19, and then the others. So I
Yeah.
only stick with Brooks, but I do try to find the brightest color when they do come out. So
Yeah.
when the new brightest color comes out in the specific shoe, I tend to try to
Yeah.
invest in that.
I have this thing about not trying to run in the same shoe two days in a row. So I
What?
have several
Really?
shoes
Wow.
and change them over. The idea being not to get into a kind of a rut in any one shoe. That's the theory.
Wow.
Um, but that also means that you've got to have at least three pairs of shoes. So
And
you can
three
go shoe
jobs.
shopping.
Yeah. and
And
three
three jobs to pay
and
for
three
them.
jobs to pay for them. Yeah, so I'm the opposite. I wear a pair until they can't rerun anymore, and I then have to say to my wife and say it's time for another pair. And that's it. I probably get a good year and a half, maybe 2 years out of a good pair of shoes.
Okay, so your first marathon attempt, just changing it up a little bit, your first
Yes.
marathon attempt was the Manchester Marathon. That didn't end well. It was kind of what I was referring to
Yeah.
in my story at the front end. If you didn't get, you probably did get the comparison. So tell our listeners about what happened at the Manchester Marathon, very first marathon, humongous challenge, next challenge. What happened there, and then how does that contrast with the Edmonton Marathon that you did afterwards?
Well, I just need to back up a bit because the word
Yeah.
marathon was never even in my mind.
Okay.
I thought the Great North Run was going to be the pinnacle of my career.
hmm
But because that didn't really pan out, I just kept running more half marathons, and I had a lot funner experiences in half marathons. Just very very quickly, like there was a half marathon in Nottingham that also had a marathon with it, and when I finished my half marathon, there were people five deep and they were cheering for me, which was completely different because what was happening is the people that were finishing the marathon were finishing the time that I was finishing my half marathon. So everyone there was cheering for the winner of the marathon, and I got swept up in that wave. Makes sense.
hmm
Great.
So, anyways, so someone was talking to me and had mentioned, so Sean, when are you going to run a marathon? I went, no, 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 I'm not. Don't even say that word. That's a bad word around me. And he goes, no, no, no. Well, Sean, listen, like what, 2 years ago, you said you'd never run a half marathon and you've done like 12 of them now. Like you're telling me that you're not going to run a marathon. I'm going to bet you're going to run a marathon in the next 6 months. I'm like, no, 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 no chance. Then that little seed of that word was planted because by this time I was running marathons, and dare I say, a half marathon was easy. I don't like that was I could do it. Like I there was
Yeah.
no stopping me. And so I just that seed just kept growing, kept growing, kept growing, and then I decided that okay, let's see. And so I decided to enter the Manchester Marathon in the UK, and so there we go. Training just was like a light switch went on because I had not only that legacy motivation, that why that I had to keep going, but then I tried to use a mind trick that I would focus all my energy on and seeing me finish the marathon, seeing the gantry, seeing me finish that marathon, and every single time that I went out for a run, I would see myself finishing that marathon, and I would use that as a mindset for me to finish that marathon. So I would always trying to find a run that finish the run on an uphill because I knew it was gonna be tough. So and I'd sprint up that uphill and I'd say at the end that was me, and every run was focused on that gantry. So I entered. It wasn't a ballot, so I got in right away, and I basically just trained. And I was very weary on if I could actually finish the distance because I'd never done that amount of distance before. And so people are saying, "Oh, you should do the distance for your psychological advantage, or you shouldn't do the distance because it's physical damage." Different thoughts on this sort of thing. So I never actually finished an actual marathon in my training, but I got like 23 miles or something, like really close,
Mm-hmm.
close to it. So I knew
Good
that
enough.
the
Yeah, I
adrenaline
would
would be
say
enough.
that's a pretty good.
So brilliant. I'm there. I'm at the start of my marathon. Everything's done. Did the carbo load the night before. I'm at the start of my marathon. Couldn't believe it. Another one of those, what the hell am I doing here moments. I can't believe I'm doing this. And my mom flew in from Canada to be at the finish line. My wife and kids were at the finish line. We stayed overnight in Manchester to get ourselves ready. It's just going to be epic. So start off, as I always do, start off too quickly. But I got myself into a rhythm going. And to make a long story short, I was slowing down as I usually would. I'd done the half marathon bit. I was getting on to the next bit. Of course, everyone's passing me and that sort of thing, and there's still some people behind me. And I noticed that there was this Matt Marshall in this middle of the street, and I thought he was just going to say, "Okay, move towards maybe the pavement or whatever, or the walkway or whatever. No problem." But I got closer and closer and never moved, didn't say anything. And I finally got up to him and I said, "Hello," and he went, "Yeah, I'm going to have to ask you to stop running." I went, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, we have to open up the roads now. Unfortunately, we have to stop running." And I'm 6 miles away, 10K away, 6 miles away from the finish of my first marathon. And he said I couldn't go. And I was like pleading with him. And I kept saying, "My mom's here from Canada and she's gonna
Oh,
see me at the finish line, and my kids, what am I gonna tell my," like I was playing this complete gibberish to try to get this guy to. He goes, "Oh, it's a safety thing. You can't do it. There's no." I said, I'll go on the road on the sidewalk." And he's like,
mm-hmm.
"Well, all the marshals we called in, you like," and because I didn't know where I was going, I thought, okay, that was it. I can't do this. So I basically, what happened was, I got off to the side. Of course, I was dejected, couldn't believe it. More people were getting the same speech from this guy, and more people were going off to the side. They had this bus going to pick us up. But then there was these two people in fancy dress. One was in a fox outfit, and one was in a chicken outfit, and they weren't having it. They said, like, I couldn't quite hear what they're saying, but all I heard was, "You can't stop me. I paid for this." And then the guy said, "Well, I have to have your number." The chicken gave the number to the marshal. The fox grabbed the number from the marshal and said, we paid for this number. We're going to go. And they just marched off. Like they were marching in the cars and that sort of thing. And I'm like, oh, okay. They must have knew where they were going anyway. So I thought, and he kept yelling, you're not going to get a finishing time, all this stuff. So fine. I get it back. I'm dejected. I don't know what I'm going to tell my kids or anything like that. And it was just not good. All 18 weeks of pure training and blood and sweat and tears completely gone. And when they dropped us off at the finish line, I saw the gantry that was in my brain, but they had dropped us off in this like back parking lot where there was like all the gels and all the water bottles and all the rubbish that was on the floor and the bat where they stored all the garbage things that were overflowing. And it was just really fitting. That's how I felt. That's exactly how I felt. And it was just demoralizing. But then ironically, I told my story online, of course, my rant online. And then a friend of mine needled me and sent me a picture of the chicken and the fox crossing the finish line with a time.
Like,
damn it. So that was my first attempt. And I thought, that's it. I'm giving it up. I'm giving it up for running.
Like, you're not doing that again.
I'm not doing, there's no way. I'm not doing that. And every right, like one of my last long runs, I'm not going to run this one again. That's it. Last time I'm going to do this. Anyways, ironically, we were going to Canada for summer. And I thought, well, let me just do a run in Canada. And then there was the Edmonton half marathon. And so okay, that's fine. A lot of my family live in Edmonton, and it's only 3 hours from Calgary. And so I entered the half marathon. And then my cousin Paul just sort of nonchalantly just texted me or he emailed me or something. He goes, well, why don't you enter the marathon here? Because you're race fit. It was only like a month or two after this whole thing. You're race fit. You're going to have your entire family at the end. It's going to be great. And I'm like, no. And he's like, maybe you better do it. And I'm like, well, maybe. And then you should do it. And I said, yes.
Is he a runner? Was he a runner, or
no,
he's just like?
He is a runner.
Sounds like a runner.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like a runner.
He's a bit of a runner.
Sounds like how your running friends sucker you into things.
Yeah, they suckered me in. Yes. So I phoned him up and I changed the to a marathon. So now once again, this crap got real. So I'm doing my training. Same. I basically had the same sort of chart. It was 16 weeks. I could that sort of thing. Kept training. And then we come to my favorite time. My favorite bit in marathon training is taper. Taper is my all-time favorite bit.
I have a question.
Yes.
So the second time around, because you used the same plan, did the runs feel easier because you'd just come off of like doing all this training? So it wasn't like it was
easier, much easier, because I knew I could do the distance because I had done the most distance ever done in regards to I was very confident in getting to where I was going to get to and finish it potentially. And the runs were a lot easier. And then of course taper, and then went to Canada. And I mentioned in the book where I was going for some runs in Canada, but like my first run, my chest was like I couldn't breathe. Like it was like every step was like and I'm like, what the heck going on? Like what's this going? And I realized that the altitude was completely different. And I was completely a lot higher in the altitude. So I was like quite worried about that. So I got over that. So I'm at the start line of the Edmonton, sort of same atmosphere sort of thing. And everybody goes. And sort of backing up a bit, I found out there was only 673 or 72 people that were running the marathon. And I'm used to running like thousands of people. So there was a potential I wasn't going to be last in these events. But I knew I was going to be last. There's no way that out of 673 people, I was going to be like in the mix. So that really shook me. But anyways, I ran and I got past the half marathon mark. And I wasn't struggling, but I was still going along. And had my headphones on, and I was getting slower as I would usually. And then about, I don't know, about, I can't remember exactly, but it was about 3 miles or 3 kilometers after the half marathon started, after I'd passed the half marathon point, I went to get some water. And there was this guy that was watching me, and I got some water, and he started running with me while I was getting the water. And he asked me if he could run with me. And I'm like, I have my headphones on, and I don't like running with people. I'm like, sure. Like that. But I said to him, I don't like talking. I will not talk. I don't, I'm not being rude. I just can't, I cannot speak because I'm literally breathing heavy. He said, no problem about that. And just, he'd keep talking to me, and I would just wave my hands, and then, I decided to take off my headphones. So they weren't these, they were like these round the
The
back
big
sort
ones.
of,
Oh, the
like a little,
yeah.
they were like, they were smaller, but they weren't quite the big ones. Anyways, they went on. So I put them down, and we just started talking. And he would jokingly say things like, "Oh, the turnaround is just up here, just up another block, and it's just the turnaround point is just another block." And it became a joke. Like, I've been running for like 5K, and he's like, I said, "Where?" I kept saying, "Where's the turnaround point?" He goes, "Oh, it's just up here." And so that became a joke. But then we got to start talking, and then we finally got to the turnaround point, and then came back, coming back, and then we came to the water station that he had picked me up at, and he made the decision that he wanted to keep running with me. And by that time, we were chatting, and he was motivating me a bit, and he would do things like run to the next water station, get me water, and if I had a gel in my hand, take the empty gel thing, and go throw it out for me. And he was just, I call him this angel that sort of pushed me along. And then eventually, at some point, this lady runner that was obviously last had passed me. So I knew that's it. I was last. That was it. And it's a completely different situation in regards to the UK Manchester Marathon, because I was so last that the bike people that were bringing up the rear were now riding behind me, while this volunteer Renee was actually with me. And it came to a point where I was coming into downtown Edmonton with like 3 or 4K left, and I was the only one left. You couldn't see any other runners, so I just, I was like really self-conscious that I was the only runner on this big road. And when I first started gulp crying was when all these volunteers that were at this water station, or just sitting there clapping, were still there, and they're giving me a standing ovation as I was running past them. I just burst into tears. Like, this was an emotional moment for me. And of course, Renee was there. And then now there's a police car behind me, or behind the bikes. And I sort of slowed up my run, and I went to the police officer, and I said, "Open the roads. There's a sidewalk here. I'll go on the sidewalk. Don't get, like, there's people are waiting to go on downtown Edmonton." And this police officer just says, "We got your back." I burst into tears. Like, it was just unbelievable. And I'm running, and I'm coming to this big intersection where people are waiting for this to end, and it's probably backing up for miles because of me. This fat guy is running, and I was really didn't want to make eye contact with these people that were in this intersection. And I ran through this intersection, and they were yelling, and I look up, and they were cheering me on. And I burst into tears again. And it was just, I was just kept going, kept going, kept going. And then my cousin Paul, who got me into this mess, he started rolling his video camera, as I was finishing. So as I was finishing, getting closer, I couldn't see the finish line yet, couldn't see the gantry yet, but I was getting closer because my daughter comes up to run with me. I see my son on the side, and my niece and nephew on the side, and I finally saw this gantry, and I started. Well, I felt like I was motoring it, but it didn't look like I was motoring, but I felt I was running at top speed. And then the second I passed that gantry, which I had in my brain, again, it just let it go. And I hugged Renee. I said I couldn't have done it without him. Then I hugged my wife, and they gave me a medal, and I said, "Give Renee a medal." And that ended that whole video that was taken of that, like, the last 3 minutes or so that was captured became a viral video and is now on many platforms. I think it last like over 55 million people have seen this, me blubbering at this finish line and sort of thing. So
That's
the
amazing.
difference between the two were night and day. And I then found out that the motto of the Edmonton Marathon is everybody finishes. And that was just the cream of the crop. And I do say to people, always judge a race by how they treat their last runner. And it's important to realize that the organizers need to realize is that there are people that will spend 5, 6, it took me 7.5 hours out there, you know, don't pack up the gantry, make sure there's enough shirts, make sure that, you know, to that, because that runner is probably spend a year, 2 years training for this moment. And when they get there, you know, it's going to be an enormous feat. So I finished it. It was one of the best days of my running career, and it'll always be the pinnacle of my journey to that date.
That's a fantastic story. And
It
I
is.
guess the moral is, you know, you could have, and to everybody else who you know feels like they have imposter syndrome, you could have run the Manchester Marathon, had a bad experience for the first time, and said, okay, that's it. But you had the courage to go again, and you got rewarded for that. And it's the difference between maybe the end of your running career and a lifetime of running.
Yeah, it was. There was definitely a fork in the road. I could have taken the easy way out, but I think it goes back to that why. I think it goes back to that legacy piece in
Yeah,
regards to the reason why I was running. I couldn't stop because now I had to uphold this responsibility for my family and that sort of thing. So maybe it was that.
And so actually, you know, you talk about your why, but it seems like you know, you're maybe not always motivated to do the same type of running over and over, because you have a whole bunch of challenges that you kind of just set up for yourself.
Yeah.
So maybe you want to talk about them and kind of what's the idea behind having these challenges as opposed to like, I guess, targeting a race or targeting a faster time.
It was quite interesting because after I'd finished the marathon, when I came back and I rested, and it took me a while to want to go back to running again, so I was sore forever. And I just started doing like 1 and 2K. But then I thought to myself, well, what's going to motivate me? I know I have my why, but what's going to motivate me to get out there? And I thought, well, half marathon, been there, done that. I use that as motivation. Marathon, been there, done that. And whenever I see that, try to look at this gantry again, I said, well, no, I've already passed that gantry. I can do that. And so I thought I needed some sort of challenge to complement my why and get me out the door. So I think one of the first ones that I tried was 55Ks in 50 days, consecutive days, because I think I'd done like 3 or 4 5Ks in a row. And I thought, well, let's see how far I can keep this streak. Now, in the books that I've read in the past, people are running like over 300 marathons in 300 days.
Mm-hmm.
It was impossible for those, but I thought if I do my own little journey, then because so I did the 55Ks in 500 days, and so that was good. I got me out the door, and then I started, you know, other challenges. Like I tried to do 100 5Ks in 100 days. So I waited a little bit and then tried this other one. And what that showed me is that whenever I hear people say things like, "Oh, I don't have time to go for a run or go for a walk or work out or whatever it is," I found that after I did those two what do you call that, challenges, I could never say I don't have time, because for those 150 days, I found an hour every single day to get dressed, go out, get changed, have shower. I found it because that's what my goal was.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can never say I don't have time, because if it means that much to you and your why is deep enough and your motivation is there, you can find time, that sort of thing.
Yeah, because
So
it's not insignificant. I mean, 150 days, like it's like half the year. I mean, it's almost
Yeah.
half the year. So yeah, there's a lot of unpredictable things I'm sure that happened during those
Oh yeah. Like I was
streaks.
doing 5Ks like just before midnight. Like I was out there. I have to go for my run. I was out there like 11 o'clock because I wanted to get it in. I didn't want to have a double up day and that sort of thing.
Hmm.
So just very quickly, I went on to other challenges like 10Ks in 10 days. Then I went on to um, uh, 3 half marathons in 3 days. That was other challenges. And then one year I tried to do 110Ks in a year, and it just kept going from strength to strength. And the what also helped me is that I got other people involved this time. Now we still weren't running together, but we were running together for a common purpose. And so I made these commemorative posters that I asked them to submit a selfie every day, and I made these sort of commemorative posters at all the 100 selfies.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
I
And
like that.
it just encapsulated it. And the some people say, well, what's the hardest one you did? By far the hardest challenge I did was the 10Ks in 10 days. That was and if it wasn't for Rachel doing it with me, because only one person did it with me, I probably wouldn't have finished that one. But going out there, my why was deep, but I still said, what the hell am I doing out here after like my everything was hurting. But my thought was Rachel was doing it too. Somewhere in our area, she had done hers or she was about to do hers.
Hmm.
And the funny thing was is that when we went to the running club, I walk in and she looks at me and I was like weathered. And I looked at her and she was like weathered. And I said to her, and I said, I was going to quit today. And he went, you too? I was going to quit today too,
Yeah.
but I thought of you doing yours. And so we both thought of each other
That's
doing
what
that, which
running
motivated.
clubs are for. That's what
Yeah,
running
that's
clubs are
exactly what it
for
was for.
because you can, tell your buddy about how
Yeah.
like
We
you
call that accountability buddy.
Yes, absolutely. But it was great. We weren't running together, but we were virtually running together, and that's where the accountability for me was.
yeah.
So streak running are great for the motivation, and so I just kept raising this bar, and that's why I say, if you can find your motivation, whatever it is, you can do the impossible. And to run a half marathon, to run a marathon, to do 105Ks in 100 days, to do what I need to do, it's just completely bonkers.
So what comes after a marathon?
Well,
Well,
that's
an
interesting
ultra
because
marathon.
ultra.
Yeah.
And this seed was put in my head by Layla, a running buddy of mine who runs lots of ultras. Like she can run ultras in her sleep, that sort of thing. And we were doing a 10K race, and she was running with me, and she's talking about what's your next challenge. I said, well, I'd like to do the London Marathon because that's iconic, and that's. But she kept saying, well, you've been there, you've done a marathon, you've already done that. Why don't you try an ultra? I'm like, no, 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 no. I said, that's it. No, I'm not. Don't even think about it. And I said, well, how long is an ultra? She goes, well, it's any number over a marathon. And I said, well, like what? He goes, well, 50K, 50K ultra. And she said something like, it's only like 13K over a marathon, whatever it was. Like it was a number, just a very small number over a marathon.
Hmm.
And of course, that was a seed. Do you mean to tell me that if I just run that extra 5 or 6K or whatever it was, I'd be considered an ultra marathon runner? She's like, yeah. And so that's what that seed was. That was that little seed that grew into this. Holy crap! I'm going to run a freaking an ultra marathon. And so, what did I do? I secretly searched for one that fitted my parameters, and I entered a ultra marathon, a 50K ultra marathon. And this was a different level of training because there's lots of different thoughts and videos and concepts and I think the one that Layla was really pushing and the one that I thought was about time on legs. It was about the amount of time you run. It wasn't
Hmm.
the distance. It was because like go run for an hour and see how long you do. Go run next day, run for another hour, see how you run. and you just go, you run for 2 hours. It wasn't about the distance, it's about the time. And like I would do double runs. So in the morning I would do like 10 or 12K or 15K. And then I would in the night I would do another 10K. And it's just about getting the
Time on
amount of
feet.
time on legs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I entered this, and training was great. I, once again, had it on my wall and Layla was there for motivation
And how did you come up with your training plan? Like, did you find it online, or did you put it together yourself, or did like Layla put it together for you?
it was a Frankenstein. It was like bits of everything. I
Okay.
took little bits from my training for marathon, just sort of switched it up a bit with distances and times. And I never went for another like 23-mile run. I never did those long runs. I just did a
Yeah.
lot of running, and I'd rest and I'd go out again to run on tired. I was trying to run on tired legs. That was the
Okay.
whole
Yeah, great.
thing.
But
Uh,
before you finish the story about ultra
yes,
marathon, just press pause there because you just touched on your training program,
yes,
and you used to write them out by hand, and
yes,
basically they were little like works of art that have all the comments on them and how many miles you've done. And I think I got the impression that you like frame them and put them in your man cave in in
yeah.
your basement or whatever. But I kind of love that concept because Liz and I, we talk about doing the training for a marathon where it was sort of, we've been trying to run a fast marathon. And we talk about doing the training and we say, we try to divorce the training from the event. And the training is a reward in itself. And it's something that you get pleasure out doing in itself. And what you kind of did, and I didn't realize this, and it just kind of came to me when I was reading the book. What you did is you made that into your certificate as a reward, effectively as a reward for achieving the training block. The training block is a challenge in itself.
Yeah.
Most people fail there. They get injured or they don't complete the training and then they go, okay, I better bail. You actually made the training plan into a work of art as a certificate, which was kind of a reward, a recognition of your training, which was a fantastic concept.
Well, thank you. I think it was. I just like the fact of putting the numbers on the thing, like on a calendar where you got a date and you got like putting X's on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I was putting numbers on it, and I think subconsciously I was getting motivation by getting close to that end, but also seeing all that hard work.
It's like checking the boxes on your
Yeah,
checklist. Like, okay, done that, done that, done that. Yeah.
but then I put the running numbers, and I would add them up, and I said, oh, I did that. And I compared it, and then I know it's good on an app, like talk about tech and stuff, but it was just visually putting it up and seeing it every morning on the
Mm-hmm.
fridge, saying, okay, this is what I'm doing today. I need to get that mindset. When I get back from work, I need to go for this, and then having that stare in my face. And I think you're right. I never thought about that. That's like a certificate saying, this is all the hard work. Like you talk about the iceberg.
Yeah.
That's under the water. That's all the
Almost
stuff
your
no one sees.
graduation certificate.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and then you give it, it's a good reflection pieces too.
Yeah. But of course, after that, after the graduation, you have to take the exam. The
Mm.
exam
Yes,
is the
yes,
run.
yes.
Except
And
that the exam result doesn't take away from the fact that you did the certificate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah, and that piece of paper actually shows me how this medal came to be. Like that,
Yep.
that medal I get is like that represents this. And it's just an interesting. I still have them somewhere, and because I don't think I've ever run a marathon again, I think that they're just really good keepsakes, a good reflection piece.
Great. So now
Back to your 50K.
the
Oh
ultra
gosh.
marathon, is that something that you want to remember, or how was that
Not
experience?
really. I'll be honest.
You got
It
it
was
done.
It was rough.
yeah, I got it done, but it wasn't nice. I became a person that I didn't want to be because Layla said she'd run it with me. And first of all, I said, okay, fine. And she runs marathons like or half ultra marathons. So she said, no, I'm going to stand by your side, no problem. Okay, so I got over that fact that I'm not holding it back because she's there for me, whatever. I just became somebody that became an asshole, basically. It was just like everything. I knew about the wall, and I don't know if I ever hit the wall, in doing the marathons. I'll be honest. I don't think I ever hit the wall. I hit the wall 3 or 4 times in this damn ultra. And first of all, I was walking a lot, and I got in my head, you know, if you walk an ultra, are you an ultra runner? And Layla goes, yeah, you're an ultra runner. I'm like, no, you're not an ultra runner. You walk an ultra distance. It's not, you're not ultra, And so, but I was walking, but I was also running. So that's the first thing that if I walk this, I'm not an ultra runner. So why am I even walking this? Like that was going through my head. And then of course my watch at the time, it wasn't an Apple Watch. It was a Garmin. My Garmin dies, like because I was out there for so long. My Garmin dies. Now all of a sudden it's not on Strava. I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? It's not going to be on Strava. And so
That's true.
like they're saying,
Yeah.
well, don't worry, you got your phone, don't you? They're like, yeah, but it's a Frankenstein. I have to put these two things. I just became an ass. And then we get to the point where the marathon would finish, but there was still extra time. So I was told that when they do an ultra marathon, they don't really measure it out. They guesstimate as to how long it's going to be. I'm
Yeah,
like, what?
standard ultra marathon stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
approximate
one of
50
those.
kilometer ish.
Yeah.
and that ish was the bit that pisses me off because I said, I want to see 50K. I'm stopping when I say 50K on my phone. So we get to the finish, we get to the start point, and there was still 6K left, right? And then the organizer comes up to me and says, I'm sorry, but we're going to have to stop you because we're done. We're like, you're last, and we're not, basically, don't want to wait for you. We don't want to wait for, because it's going to be another hour or so. We're not going to wait for you. And I looked her straight in the eye. I was like right up in her face. At this point, I was like, there's no way I'm stopping this race. I said, there's no way. I said, I am going to finish this race. I looked her straight in the eye. My eye started to twitch, right? I am going to finish this race. I don't care. You leave that medal on that bench over there. I'm going to finish this race. You go home. I don't like, this is the asshole coming out. This was like, I don't talk like this to people, but I was emotional.
It's also
drained.
it's also the Fox example from the Manchester Marathon.
I said to her, and I literally said to her, or no, I am the fox, and I'm going to finish. And it was just, I said, I am going to be this fox, that fox analogy, that fox person. I became that person that I saw and the Manchester Marathon. I said, I am not a chicken. I am a fox. And I just went by her. And then Layla knew I was getting upset. So she sort of said, oh, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And basically what happened is, goes, can you have your phone number? Because I want to make sure you finish and we're going to go. And no problem. So she sorted it all out. And I felt like I took like a bat out of hell. Like I thought I was running faster than I ever run before. And then all of a sudden the whole
good motivation.
Yeah. Well, it was motivation for me. And I probably only ran about 100 meters. And all of a sudden my legs went, what the hell are you doing? And then all of a sudden the heavens opened up because it just started downpouring. It was like,
oh no.
It was like Galapagos Island rain. It was just like coming down. And so I kept running. And then all of a sudden, I don't know, with about 6K left or what it was I haven't even got to the turnaround point. My body just said, that's it, Sean. No more. Like this was the third wall I've hit. And I literally was slogging and just like shuffling. And I almost went into to this water bit and I just like almost started crawling, but I just like, I couldn't finish. And I kept saying to Layla, I kept saying, you guys get an Uber, you guys go, and let's get a taxi, because that sort of thing. And then we hit the 50K on the thing. It said, she showed me on her watch she showed me 50K, right? And I was emotional. And I grabbed her hand and I said, Layla, I couldn't have done this without you. I did it. I'm an ultra runner. But because it was ish, there was like 4 more kilometers to go or 3 more kilometers to go. And I went, let's get it, like, stop. Let's stop right here. That's it. Let's stop. I did my 50. Let's go. Like, let's get in a taxi. He goes, no, you'll kick yourself. I said, I'm not kicking myself. I want to stop. I'm stopping. But because where we were, there was no roads or anything. It was a pathway. So eventually,
classic
after 10
ultra,
hours,
it's always in the woods somewhere.
Yeah. After 10 and a half hours, I finally got to the finish. And then we had to walk another K to get to the car. So all in all, I think I did 55K, but it wrecked me. It wrecked me as a runner. And I got injured myself. And I'll be honest, up until recently, probably this last 6 months or so, I think I've had plantar fasciitis since then, and I haven't had
Oh
it fixed.
no.
So I so I've only run a little bit, and because my leg was sore and it wrecked me as a runner. I'd run a bit, but I didn't have fun. I didn't enjoy it. So I probably took like 6 months off, maybe a little more than that. But I do a little bit because I kept wanting to stay motivated. And then of course COVID hit, and then I had a poker cave, but because we didn't play poker anymore on a Wednesday night league, I changed it into a gym, and I
Okay.
got a treadmill. And so I got a treadmill, and I started watching movies while I was running or walking. And then so that sort of got me motivated to do some more running. So I just did that. And I haven't really entered any more races. And then it wasn't until recently that I sort of found what my next challenge is going to be. And I'm going to tackle the world of triathlons.
Wow.
That's my next
Okay.
challenge.
That's
And
that's
so
amazing.
So where are
yeah,
you
so
with that? Where are you with try? This will be book number 2, obviously.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's the name
Just
of it.
finished the try.
Try, Sean, try. It goes back to a good one of my running heroes, David Lee, who did a triathlon right by our house, and I went to see him, and like that was never I it was always in my head, but I didn't think I was never going to do it. But I noticed that people like there's so beginners there that would have a bike like with a basket on the front, and it just really starters. And so that was always in the back of my head. I started needing a challenge, and over the last 6 months, I'm like, I think I'm gonna run. I think I'm gonna run that triathlon that David Lee did, but I just missed it. It just been done. So I said, okay, I think I'll train for that for a year. But then I said, well, no, I'm gonna enter one now. So I entered one, and I did my very first triathlon about 2 weeks ago.
Oh wow.
Sprint
Congrats.
triathlon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. It was only like a 400-meter swim.
Swim.
It was a 20K ride and then a 5K run. But it gave me the bug, gave me that bug. And now what people are telling me, they're saying, "Oh, Sean, you do realize this new sprint triathlon is like the Couch to 5K app. So
Yep.
you know what the ultimate of a triathlon is." And I went, "What?" He goes, "Iron Man." I went,
Oh
and
my
I was like, I
goodness.
almost skipped. I was like,
I
no.
have to say, I've run like many marathons. I still can't wrap my head around a triathlon, like an Ironman, because um I've gone. So my husband likes to cycle. He was more of a cyclist when we met. I asked him one day to take me for 100K bike ride because I wanted to know what it felt like.
Yeah.
It's like I see, like, because I'm kind of half immersed in this cycling world, because when we used to live like downtown Montreal, he used to cycle with a group, and they would go, like, he would be gone like half of the Saturday, like just because their ride was so long. And he'd come back, and his Strava would say something like 100, or sometimes more than 100, or 80 kilometers was like no big deal for them. And I was like, oh well, I'm fit, I'm a runner, I can do marathons, I do all this training, I should be able to ride 100K. And oh my goodness, like my bum was so sore. Like those last 30 kilometers were very painful. And
Yeah.
I haven't done one since. So, and putting them all together, it just means that, well, not like then after that, all of that biking, like you got to go run a marathon. I can't wrap my head around that. Like it's just.
The good thing about triathlon is it's got lots of tech in it. So you're obviously a tech fan. I think you've just opened up Pandora's box of technology there.
Yeah, I've got I need a tri suit, and I need
a bike trainer. You need a bike trainer. You need a Zwift membership.
Yes.
Zwift so connects with your Strava.
Peloton or something like that. No.
I haven't got into it, but I'm actually doing a duathlon this weekend. This Sunday, I'm doing it. It's just a 5K run.
Oh, nice.
20K ride and a 2.5K run this weekend.
Okay.
But I think the goal is right now is to do an Olympic size one, which is like it's like 750-meter swim, 25K ride, and a 10K run at the end. So I think that's the level I want to get to.
I think
the ride's longer than that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
I think is it 40? Is it
40K.
40K?
yeah, that's
Yeah,
as far
40K.
as
Yeah,
I
40K.
got. I got to that 1500-meter swim, 20K bike, sorry, 40K bike, and then 10K run. That
There
was
you
as far
go.
as I made it. Yeah,
That's it.
as far as I
You've
made it.
done it. So
Yeah.
that's the next
But
thing on my list. And
I won't get to, I don't know if I'll ever get to the Ironman. Anyway, we'll see. Maybe in like a future episode one day, like another 500 episodes into the future, I will be telling you all about the fact that like last weekend I went and I completed a Ironman triathlon, but I don't know.
well, there's one thing I've realized I can't say to myself, never say never, because I never thought I'd do anything that I've done. So who knows?
Do you feel
God
much fitter
willing.
now? Do you feel like more healthy or more fit? I know in your book you talked about not really losing weight per se because you weren't really trying to do that necessarily. But with all the exercise that you've done, it must change your body shape or something.
Yes. The main reason I wanted to start running was to, this health scare, but I wanted to lose weight. That was my goal. That was like,
Mhm.
I wanted to lose weight. But what I realized after doing some research and watching YouTube, and running is not the really greatest thing to lose weight.
No.
Because I was still, because what I was basically running so I could eat the M&Ms. So I wasn't running to lose weight. I was running so I could have that surprise at the end, whatever. So there's three things I think you need to do. You need to have, do the exercise, you need to eat properly, and then you need to add weights to it. Like I never did that. So
Mhm.
I started not doing it now. The thing is that early in my running journey, I started seeing muscles where I never had muscles, like in my legs, and I felt my body getting tighter, getting fitter, but I never lost a lot of weight. Like I just gained muscle. But I think the number one thing that I think that everyone might overlook, or I know that I overlook to start, but the amount of benefit from a mental health point of view has been astronomical.
Yeah.
You just get rid of all this tension in your body and the negative thoughts if you have any when you go for these long runs, you work really hard, and that's one thing. So it just bothered me. I just really wish that all these miles and blood, sweat, and tears I could step on the scale and get to the weight that I want to get to. But I think that the scale doesn't tell the whole story. If you feel
Mhm.
fit, if you feel better for yourself, I got a lot more body confidence. Like when we went for holidays, I wouldn't mind taking off my shirt on the beach, even though I'm still, big. And I think that's the true triumph that
Yeah.
that body confidence and mental health, and that
It's
feeling
like
that
freedom.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's liberating. And then add the fact that my kids are now being more active, and it's just a whole package of benefits of, even though the scale doesn't tell me.
So you actually mentioned and you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, but also in the book, that whenever you set a new goal, like you do enjoy reading, and you get some new books to help you train for your new goal. So
Yes.
I don't know, maybe I just wanted to know, like, what do you like getting out of books as opposed to other mediums? Or like I'm guessing you use both, like, because you also mentioned that you like to watch YouTube videos, but like is there something about the information from books that, like, I don't know, certain topics you prefer getting the information from books, or certain reasons why you'd get it there?
Well, ironically, I'm not a big reader, but I'm a big audiobook guy. So if, like, for example, I like reading, because I'm a well-being and personal development trainer. I tend to read books on, like Chimp Paradox, on how to manage stress and mindfulness, and so that I can use it for my training, but I use it for myself as well. So books like Chimp Paradox by Dr. Stephen Peters really help me understand, when you have that dilemma in regards to, should I go for that run, and you get, you stay home and relax, you'll be fine, and you find out why you are feeling that way. So
Okay.
when I read books, I think I look for theories and models, because theories and models give meaning to what I see.
Mm-hmm.
And that really helps me put things in perspective, but also use that model to explain why I'm acting a certain way or why I'm not doing something a certain way. So I audiobooked a lot of different books, like, Al Higdon's marathon books and, Mind of a Champion and all these different books that gave me some stuff for training, but I'm more interested in more of the mindset books
Mm-hmm.
that help
Okay.
you focus your mind, and which helped me find my why and understand how powerful that is.
I don't know if because it's a bit like that for me, so maybe I'm just projecting, but maybe that's kind of like what it is for you too. But I find that the YouTube videos are great because like you can see something or you can get some information, like let's say I don't know what types of workouts to put into your marathon training plan, for example. But then the book will most likely give you all of the background information about why you're doing that. And
Yeah.
so then it helps you maybe, I don't know, understand what you're doing and maybe motivate you more. I don't know if that's what it is for you, but I like that's kind of how I see books. I see books as like they're almost like structured information with like the information, but then the background for it, they're usually kind of structured in a certain way, even just like you just wrote a book. So you kind of wrote a little bit like that too, because yes, like throughout the book, you're talking about your running journey, but then you also give the background of like, oh, well, I used to, I had this health scare and that sort of led to this, or I met this person and they planted the seed for me to try my first whatever distance it was. So I don't know.
My relationship with books has evolved because I think when I first started reading when I'm running,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just for motivation. It was just hearing stories about other runners
Yeah.
and
Okay.
what their journey was. That sort of piqued my interest. Saying, "Well, I've done that. That sounds like me." Especially Ira Rennie's Fat Man, the Green Man. He tells a story pretty much exactly the same as mine, but then he went off to do iconic stuff. And then later on, I'm trying to look for more technical stuff and what's the reasoning behind it, and different ways of looking at how to train smarter, not harder, and then people would come up with different concepts, and I'd have to follow up with other talking to my colleagues that I've met at running club, or I'd see a video, and that's why I call it a Frankenstein in regards to I take all these best bits and what fits into my lifestyle, because someone's theory or someone's training plan won't fit into my lifestyle because they may not have kids or they have 10 kids, or so as a runner or someone who wants to be active, you have to be able to have different perspectives. And I think that's what books do, give you different perspectives and different concepts that you can use for yourself.
I noticed the books that you
Well
send
said.
us are signed by the famous author,
So,
John
yes.
Kachmarski, which is
Oh,
pretty
yes.
cool. If people want to get themselves a signed copy, can they do that? Or is that a special that's just afforded to people?
Absolutely. There's a couple of ways. You can get it on Amazon. Um, I don't like getting people from Amazon because it's not the best way, but there's a Kindle version you can get on Amazon. That's easy. It's not a signed copy, of course, but you can get it on Amazon. I prefer people on PayHip. It's just a site that sells the book, or you can contact me directly and pay through PayPal, and I'll send you a copy, and it's like 10 quid to get a copy, or whatever the postage and stuff. I know everyone's in Canada. I think the postage is quite high, but I do have some books in Canada. I brought a bit box of books to my parents in Canada, so that's my hub of my
Okay.
distribution center in
Great.
Canada. So if anyone in Canada wants a copy, just drop me a line,
Yeah.
and I will get my distribution team to requisition a copy out to you guys. And
And people can get in touch with you just via social media or
yes,
just DM on Instagram or something like that.
absolutely. I made the decision to come off all social media probably around, I don't know, about 2 years ago now. And it was probably the best decision I ever made. I've always had my YouTube show called Sean Speaks um, for many, many years. And I just kept that as a YouTube channel. It's called Sean Speaks on YouTube. And it's just like 5-minute shows about my journey and about
Okay.
running and stuff like that. But I just recently went back onto Instagram. You can find me on Instagram with at Sean Speaks on YouTube. And I just post silly pictures of my training and motivational quotes that I come up with, and just my journey. And it is part of my legacy piece where, at some point my kids will appreciate this stuff and will look at it and maybe be motivated themselves. But if I'm able to motivate anybody along the line, and anyone wants to reach out and want to hear more of my story, I'm absolutely more than happy to pay back to the community where they've helped me so much in my journey and in changing my life and embracing me. And so I'm more than happy to embrace anybody who wants a little pep talk or someone to chat with.
That's fantastic.
That's great.
So what we might do now is we'll give our summaries for the book. Do you want to go first, Liz?
Okay. First thing I'll say is the book is easy to read, and Sean is very relatable. I enjoyed reading about how he overcame challenges, but I liked that he was also very honest about some of the things he did or said that he was not proud of, like his sort of like a meltdown. I'll just abbreviate it as that during one of the only ultras that he ever did. It was interesting to learn about the kinds of things that motivate Sean, like the running 5K for 50 days or the running 3 half marathons on 3 consecutive weekends. So, I mean, it just goes to show you how many different ways there are to run and to keep yourself motivated and to enjoy what you're doing. And, that gave me a different perspective than, let's say, I guess, kind of what I've been doing the last few years, where like I'm just trying to hammer out this goal marathon that I want that just never happens. There are other ways to stay motivated to keep on running. One idea that I might actually use with a group that I'm currently coaching is one of Sean's ideas about the selfie collage. So I thought that was brilliant. I mean, that's so great, and it captures that moment in time for those people. And I thought that it was really great that at the end he had it framed for each one of them, which was like such a great idea. About the book, I guess physically, I'll just say the cover photo. So initially, like the cover looks a little busy, but once you read the book and you know the story behind the cover photo, it fits the spirit of the book. And it was a great choice, actually. It was the perfect choice, I think, after reading all the running experiences that Sean had. And it shows really what the running community is all about. And that's, helping each other, inspiring each other, and helping each other get over that finish line. And I guess I'll just say thank you for giving us signed copies of the book, Sean.
Yeah, they'll be worth a fortune when you're super famous. When you overtake Taylor Swift in the social media standings, we'll be able to sell those books for God knows how much.
Except that I'm not selling them because it's like running shoes. I hoard books in my bookshelf.
That's
like
true.
It's got to stay.
Me too.
When I do my 10th Ironman, you'll have my book. So
yeah, there you go.
Great.
We'll have an original copy of the first book. It'll be 5 books in by then.
Yes.
So my summary, you summed it up pretty darn well, Liz. But just my thoughts were, it's an easy read. First of all, the chapters are very short. There's 48 of them in a normal size book, so it keeps the pages turning, which is really cool. There are a few color photographs inside the book as well, which is nice. They're not too many, but they're quite meaningful, as Liz points out for the cover photograph, for example. Something that I've mentioned already, Sean treats his written training logs like works of art or a certificate of honor, which is a great concept. That's another good little thing you can do to motivate yourself. A good thing about the book and an interesting thing about the book is Sean doesn't transform into some kind of super athlete. Doesn't go off to the Olympics after getting up off the couch and putting his McDonald's down. Doesn't go off to the Olympics. He just keeps plugging away, and he creates challenges for himself to keep himself motivated. And to that extent, it's much more accessible. It's much more real. It's much more meaningful for somebody who is just an ordinary Joe, like most of us are. What I would say is, if you lack a bit of motivation, a bit of self-motivation, like most of us do from time to time, or you think you're not a real runner, everybody has somebody that they look up towards. We think we're runners, but then we look at Kelvin Kiptum running in 2 hours and we go, oh yeah, well, we're not a real runner like him. If you feel like that, ever feel like that, this is the book for you. That's what I would say. Get this book and read it because it speaks to you. It'll speak to you. You'll see yourself in there somewhere.
Oh, thank you. That was very, very nice. Thank you.
So we'll do our outro, but just thank you for your time, Sean. We really appreciate you spending time with us this evening, especially on a late nighter from the UK.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Running Book Reviews. Big thanks to Sean for sending us copies of his book and signed copies, and for spending time with us today, even though it is way past his bedtime. If you'd like to leave us feedback about how we can improve the podcast or want to suggest a book that you'd like for us to review in a future episode, you can leave us a comment on social media. We are Running Book Reviews on Facebook and Instagram, and on Twitter, we are reviews_running. Please also follow us on social media to find out when new episodes are released. And you can also subscribe to the podcast on your favorite streaming platform. If you've been listening to us for a while and are wondering how else you can help us out, there are a few ways. If you are enjoying the podcast, spread the word, tell your friends, and share a link to your favorite episode with your running buddy. Also, you can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts if this is how you listen to your podcast, or you can rate us on Spotify out of 5 stars. And we're also on Buy Me a Coffee, where you can see some little extras of things that are not always book related. Sometimes they're just life related. And you can follow us on Buy Me a Coffee, and every time we post something, you get an email. So we're also running book reviews on Buy Me a Coffee. Bye for now.
Bye.